Hello, everyone. Welcome to 360 Degrees Excellence, where we believe everyone can have all-round success. Happy New Year. I want to wish you a wonderful year ahead, a prosperous one, a happy one. I pray that it's going to be a very successful year for you and your family. Today, I'm going to be having a conversation with my friend, Dr. Larry Ojomo. We've known each other for several years, and I'm so happy to be having a conversation with him. We're going to be talking about what Eli's talking about. Eli's talking about self-reflection. We're also going to be talking about growth plan, and we're also going to be talking about mental health and building resilience. We need to build resilience for 2023. But before we dig into all those topics that I mentioned, it's important that you know my guest. So without further ado, I just want, Doc, can you just tell my guest about yourself?
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here, Chelsea. Just call me Larry or Larry for short. That's what my wife and my daughter and my son calls me. I'm going to say a bit of a story so that helps the audience know who I am. So in the last year, I've been spending more time with my kids. Obviously, I have to learn it the hard way through reflection. So very recently, during the Christmas period, so myself and my daughter usually had interesting conversation in the car. It's quite a mindful moment. Nothing is playing, it's quite still, sometimes classical music, or sometimes we're just playing some podcast. So you told me about their Christmas games they're doing in school. And the plan is to give a gift to another PS of hers. So she had this list, and then she told me, Daddy, you have to take me to one of the best bookstore in Calgary. And she's an avid reader, like my son as well. So I politely agreed to her request, and we went, and she bought a couple of good quality books for our friends. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh my God, this girl's going to learn the hard way. That you don't just, it's good to add value to people, but you don't give everything to people. You have to. So I reminded myself, and I told her the rule of 1/3 I learned from a mentor. When you earn, you keep 1/3 for yourself. 1/3 you give to charities, to others and God, and 1/3 you spend on yourself. Unless she just, she challenged my assumptions like she usually do. To cut the story short, okay, I think around Christmas or post-Christmas period, she got a gift. It was a book she wasn't expecting. Not good quality. She was quite upset. So I had to help her with her emotion to understand that when you give without, when you give, you add value to people without expecting anything back. It was a bit challenging for her, but she got the concept. Fast forward, just yesterday, I got to the school to pick her up, and she was beaming with smile. I said, "Oh, I'm there. What's going on? How are you feeling?" That's my question. And she said, "Oh, my friend Highland, one of her best friends, got her some good candles from one of the best, stores in Canada, in Calgary." And I learned a lesson that from her that we shouldn't try to use our own assumptions, our conditioning, our past experiences, our art and whatever in our own life to condition our own children. We should try to allow them to experiment. So she got some lovely candles. I think 4 or 6 of them. At the end of the day, I asked her if she could give me one, but she says, I didn't know. This is my extreme self-care. And she reminded me my own candles my lovely wife bought for me, I think, during my birthday. And I think I've got my candle here. So that's my candle here now. So it reminds me the light we carry. So it also helps me to switch to a moment of mindfulness rather than being distracted. We live in an age where we're constantly distracted, and it's very hard for anyone to be in the moment. that probably summarizes who I am. So just to summarize what I've just said, so I'm a father of two active kids, and I'm married to a lovely woman. Of course, most of your audience, they don't know what I do, but I'm a physician who specializes in well-being, longevity, resilience, and immune performance. So this is on the background of the fact that I've been a psychiatrist and a doctor for many years.
Interesting. I like that story that you shared. I know you like talking about your kids. You're a great father. Very interesting. And I've also known you to be a physician, like you said, and you also like talking about leadership. You are trained, I think, by John Maxwell to be a leader. And I know that you read a lot. Very interesting. And you recently started a blog, your websites. I've read some of those articles, very, very interesting. You like the way you share stories, very amazing. I am hoping that very soon you're going to be writing your books. Keep it up, my friend. So let's really go.
I'm overwhelmed by your comments. I feel like I should go to bed right now. Thanks for your kind words, Tosi.
Yeah, you're welcome. So today we just want to talk about self-reflection. Yeah. And then you've also talked about mindfulness, that I'm sure there's a kind of a relationship between that. So I want you to tell us about how self-reflection is important for continuing improvement, and how can we build or develop this vital skill?
I think that's a very interesting question. I don't think I'll be able to do justice to that question, but hopefully, as I'm speaking from my own experience, I'm sure our audience will learn one or two things, really. So first and foremost, like John said in his 15 Laws of Invaluability, John is a great mentor of mine. He said that it's very hard for you to be a great human being if you don't know who you are in terms of character. And he also said that you can't improve your skills, or you can't improve your career if you don't improve your skills. And the last thing he said, which is very important to me, is about your spirituality, which a lot of people don't talk about these days because of political correctness. So that brings me to, I think you asked about self-reflection, but I think self-reflection is just a part of the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth. I'm sure, I've read other books, some great mentors like Carol Dweck, Professor in Stanford. I've read that book in my Mindset. That's a great book if people want to have a look at that. Awesome. Also, James Clear is one of also a mentor who has probably mentored me about atomic habits. I'm always, I have that book just close by. So every sort of weekend or monthly, I have a look at that. But these are great books. But again, there are so many other books out there people can use. But we know that a lot of people read a lot of books, but they don't slow down to reflect. So that brings me to the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth. Again, I'm mindful of the fact that we're doing a quite short interview. Currently, I'm running the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth for about 4 to 6 weeks, where people can, if you want to take a deep dive, if that's what they really want to do this year, to take their year to a different level, they can have a look. I'm sure we put that link in the show notes, Tosin, remind me, so that people can have a look at that link. So to summarize the 15 Laws of Growth, I think what it means to me, again, I think, who am I to put a spin on John Maxwell, the great, on his content. But I can summarize the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth in one word. I think it's just having a beginner mindset. That's what it means. And to have a beginner's mindset is very hard without you being in the moment. So for example, I'm just going to go through the law. So one of my favorite laws, the law of intentionality. If you don't know yourself, you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses before you can know, where to address. Okay. So for me, I knew I need to spend more time with my kids. I've been like an absent father for some few years, so I need to address those. So I knew my weakness. So the other thing is the law of curiosity. We'll probably come back to that, asking questions. You probably know I send a lot of questions to you most days. Some people don't like it, but if you're curious, like me, you probably enjoy doing that. And the other one is the law of expansion and contributions. Maybe we'll talk about that, and the law of environment. They're very, very important to me. I think all the laws are sweet. But let's focus on the law of reflection that we're talking about today. It's interesting that despite the fact that I was educated at one of the best schools in this sub-Saharan Africa, nobody taught me reflection. Even I was schooled in one of the best schools in Europe, the Maudsley. Nobody taught me what reflection really is, to be honest, until I joined the John Maxwell team. So, in a simple word, reflection is just you slowing down, pausing, and gleaning from your experiences, both the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
So I could explain to people how I do my reflection. So John does his reflection differently, and I'm still learning from John and other top leaders out there. So John would say a day or two after Christmas, it blocks that 2 or 3 days off. I think maybe a day or two, and it goes to a quiet place without distraction, and now it will go to all his calendar for example, for the last year, 2022. He will review all the meetings. I'm not John. I mean, I couldn't even do that. So John would do that. He would go to all the meetings. He will review, reflect, evaluate, look at the meetings that he doesn't need to attend. Some meetings are useless, to be honest, and some are really good. So you have to review those meetings. So what did I learn? What am I going to do differently? For me, I'm sure our audience will be wondering, how do I do mine? I'm not like John, but I do it sort of differently. So it's from another mentor I got, something similar. So I've tweaked it over the years, but I call myself my copy now. I call it my, we'll put this my website in the show notes, or people can go to my website to get a copy. So in my wellness egg, it's a daily action plan for me. So I've got my big rocks, my small rocks, people I need to contact today. Then I've got the bucket of life. So under the bucket of life, I've got my spirituality, my fitness, my finances, my relationships, including family and significant others, community as well, and of course, community work, and also fun and relaxation. So this system in place allows me to capture everything in a day. So for example, after I try to reflect at the end of the day, but it's always very difficult for busy people like us. I've got 2 young kids, I'm married, I've got other things to do. So sometimes it's hard for me to reflect on those things. So but by the weekend, on a Sabbath day, I would have a look at that and look at, okay, what did I enjoy? What did I learn? What I'm going to do differently? And I'll write in my journal. And at times, I follow the wagon like most people. I don't get to do the reflection over the weekend. But what I tend to do is to schedule that appointment with myself, at least at the end of the month. So for example, I schedule a time at the end of this month, I'm going to go away just for a day, away from the distraction of life and go and learn. And I do it quarterly, yearly. So by the end of the year, I have a system in place where I'll be able to glean from my bad and good experiences, so to speak. I was speaking to somebody the other day. He was a mentee of mine. He was saying, Doc, how do I do that when I couldn't even remember what I learned in the last 2 weeks? And I said, that's why you have to have a system in place. Even if you have a photographic memory, I think it will be great for you to have a system in place where you can capture those thoughts. So by the end of the year, you have tons of data about yourself, about your people around you, about the meetings you attended, about the events you attended, and also about places you visited and the people you share those experiences. So you have like a 366 This year, is it a leap year? I'm not sure. I'll double check. But you have at least 365 content for you to review.
Powerful. Yeah. I like the way you really describe the meaning of self-reflection, we really need to look back and look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, the mistakes you made, the successes, and you want to improve on the success you made. You don't want to repeat the mistake you made. You don't want to repeat the same mistake that you made. And you want to keep on improving yourself, which is very, very important. And I also like the fact that you show something, a place where you write things down. It's very, very important for us. It makes us to be intentional. We're able to write things down. Yeah, I really appreciate that fact. And because of our time, can you briefly talk to us about growth plan? I mean, what is it, and how can we create one?
Awesome question, interesting question. So you cannot have a growth plan until you have an awareness of what your strengths and your weaknesses. And that's why I spent the last minute or so to really explain to people how to capture that. So imagine a plane flying from Calgary to, I think you're in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. So the first thing a plane has to do is to, again, I'm not an expert in the field. I know some other people will be thinking, well, what's this guy talking about? But you first have to geographically locate where you are, and that's an awareness. Then you have to now project you're going to Minnesota. And if you don't want to go to Minnesota, let's say you want to go to New York, that's a growth plan. Then you have to make adjustments where you want to go. So that leads me to what do you mean by growth plan? So for example, in my own life, so one of the things I want to do more is to spend more time with kids. So like today, we got to school. I dropped my daughter around about 7:55. Yesterday was 7:50. So the growth or goal plan today is to get her to school 7:45, so she can have time to settle down, do her mindfulness, and then get ready for school at 8. But in the last year, it's been like, sometimes it's 8 o'clock, sometimes 8 to 5, like most parents rushing, around, very busy. But this year, one of the growth plans is to get her to school. So we know, like Ben Franklin said, early to bed, early to rise, and I'm a reminder, you have to get to bed early, because it makes you wealthy, wise. And then, you wake up in the morning, you're full of energy. And I know a lot of people don't do that. So that's one of my sort of growth plan. It's not a goal. The difference between a goal and a growth plan is that the goal is that you're looking at the journey. Oh, so maybe at the end of this time, if I achieve that goal, I'm going to stop and follow the wagon. That's what most people do. But for me, the growth plan is not only to get out of school by 7:45, but to spend time, mindful moment with her. She tells me about worries. We have a good conversation. Sometimes we listen, we learn together. She asks me good questions. You see what I mean? So it's a growth plan. And I'm hoping that would be a lifelong journey for us, even when she's 18, when she's in college, when she becomes a professor. Hopefully, I'm still around. I can still have that conversation as a dad. So it's a growth plan for me. So that's an example. And as I alluded to a few minutes ago about having that bucket of life. So the other thing is about my fitness. You probably know I'm a physician in the field of wellness. So I know I've got a growth plan. So I don't have a goal that I want to go and run a marathon. A lot of people will say, oh, this year I want to ride a 5K. That's great, awesome. Some people will say they want to run a marathon. That's awesome. But I don't have that kind of plan. As part of somebody who's invested in or interested in wellness and longevity, I want to see when I'm 70, I want to be able to do what I'm able to do now or much more. If that makes sense. So for example, hopefully if I have my grandkids, I want to be able to run around with them, not be in a wheelchair. I want to be able to spend more time with them and be in good vitality. If that explains that. So why I said, if you don't have a beginner mindset, you would struggle. Because someone with beginner mindset, you'll be able to focus all the laws, either Carol Dweck's book, either James Clear book, either the Atomic Habit. I mean, there are 1,000 of books on habits or growth plan if you Google that or go to the nearest workshop. But what I've found out is if you have a growth in a beginner's mindset, you'll be able to say, okay, I'm going to leave all the things, my successes I achieved in 2022, and you're going to set for, hopefully, a bigger plan in 2023. But the question really is, I ask myself, and people have asked me that, how can I grow when I don't even know myself? Most people, they leave, and it's not their fault. They are well-intentioned people. It's just because they lack an awareness. Imagine you spend the whole 7 days. Now, I think today is 11th. I'm sure most people out there can't even tell me what I'm sure 50% of people can't tell me what they've achieved in the last week. Again, no disrespect to anyone listening to this. I think even for me, until now, I was just, I was just living life in emotion. So you have to know that first. You have to be in the moment to capture those experiences. And that informs your growth plan. And if you're not achieving that, so for example, after the end of this month, I'm going to pause and reflect. I'm going to look at the growth plan. Am I taking my daughter to school by 7:45? Okay, great. So what can I do? Maybe, am I having dates with her? People find it quite weird from our culture. You're having a date with your daughter. But I try to schedule that into my growth plan. I need to have a date one-to-one with her, 30 minutes every day. Let me take that to the nearest Starbucks or to a bookshop or a library. I will spend quite quality time. As well as my son too, I have a growth plan for that really. So if you don't have, if you're not aware, you're not in the moment, you'll be surprised that most people by December, they'll say, whoa, why did this year?
Yeah.
You're not intentional. You're not aware of the moment. You don't know what's going on. And I was thinking to a philosopher the other day, it sounds like it's like if somebody has woken you up from sleep. Like I was like that before I joined the John Maxwell team or into a growth environment. I was like sleeping, metaphorically, But then when somebody woke you up, then it jumps in you that you need to be intentional. You need to be aware. You need to have a plan for your life, which is I call it growth plan. Goals are wonderful, but I think growth plan is that you're not focusing on the journey itself. You are enjoying the process, both the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, we are human beings. Yeah. We make mistakes, certainly, because we are flawed human beings. But as long as you're looking at that, okay, whoa. So last year for me, some of my family members or friends said, oh, you don't want to associate with us. You are so busy, man. I said, okay, yeah, maybe. And this year, communities, friends, and family is one of my work plan. Maybe a phone call every other time to talk to them. You see what I mean? That will improve our relationships. So, but imagine if you're not aware of what's going on. You're just living life in emotion. Yeah. And you're just asleep until
Yeah. I like that growth plan. I like the way you really explained that about growth plan. And I believe we should all have growth plan. And you mentioned the fact that you spend time with family. Family is very, very important. So if you're thinking of having a growth plan, you want to really focus on certain areas that are very, very important. You talked about health. You talked about spending time with your children. I think it's very, very important. I'm sure all of us are going to be learning from you to be intentional about that, to really spend time with our kids. Somebody said that the best thing you can give to your kids is time. It's not really a presence. It's your own presence. It's not the gifts you give to them. It's not those presents. It's your presence. Your presence.
Absolutely. Time, I agree.
And I think it's very, very important for us to really have a plan for that. And you also talked about the importance of really enjoying the moment, enjoying the process, not only focusing on the end result. You really enjoying the process and asking yourself whether you've been able to achieve what you set out to to achieve. It's very, very important. Yeah, I really like. I'm also going to be intentional about that, about really having a growth plan. And I know you're a psychiatrist that, I've been wanting to speak to you about mental health, is really something that we must keep talking about. All people don't really, they're not really intentional about building their improving their mental health. As we begin this year, we really to talk about mental health. So can you really talk to us about how we can improve our mental health and also build resilience for 2023? And this is the right time to talk about that. Is this the first or second week of January? I just want you to speak to that. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for that. Very good question. I'm not sure I'm the best person to address it. A lot of professors in Harvard, Stanford, and I learned from those people. Where I finished from the most, these are great institutions. But, right, that's what I was talking about, having a beginner mindset. And if you have that beginner mindset and you live in the moment, you will start questioning your assumptions and traditions, even the way you've been trained. And I'm back in Ife where I was trained, or probably back at the mostly. Again, I work with fantastic people, great, colleagues and all that. But then, right, people thought the world was flat for many years until some people challenged their assumptions. And that's the purpose of science, We need to challenge these assumptions. It takes courage to do that. I'm a student of history. I won't go into that topic. We could talk about that all day today, about the interesting, about history itself as it pertains to science, psychiatry, mental health, or medicine itself. But I don't want to go into that. What I want to talk about is well-being. That's what I'm focusing on at the moment. Okay, so it's great. I have my colleagues that are more traditional psychiatrists. We talk most days. They talk me about their patient, and I smile and all that stuff. They're doing a great job. But I see things sort of differently. I see it from a different angle. And it's trying to address what you talk about, one's mental well-being. I'm sure if you go on LinkedIn today or you go on social media, a lot of people are talking about well-being. But there's this phrase I learned from John. He said, you cannot give what you don't have. A lot of people say one thing, they're doing something else, okay? So I think we should talk about well-being first. Well, not about what are the ways, we can optimize our strategy and tactics we can use to improve those things. So I'm sure your audience might want to know, okay, yeah, I don't have any anxiety. I don't have any worries. Why should I address my mental health? Or, my physical health is great. It's okay. Maybe not optimal. It's okay. I'm active and all that. My GP told me I don't have blood pressure. I don't have diabetes. I don't have asthma. Why should I invest, in my health? So I'll be talking from the lens of the mind-body connection. Okay, and how people can achieve that optimal health, not the normal traditional health that most hospitals are approaching to us. Okay, right. So, for example, the way I look at things is like we're human beings. Okay, we're gonna have storms in life, right? We're gonna have different experiences. Even in 2023, it's gonna be fun. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So a wise man would start planning ahead, okay? And if you look at my wellness, yes, your spirituality. So, for example, this morning, I think I woke up. I don't know why. I woke up around sort of 3, 4 o'clock. Usually, I have 8 hours sleep. Maybe it's the anxiety of this interview. What did I do? I couldn't go to bed. I took my mat out, my medicinal mat, and I sat there for almost 20 minutes meditating. Then I went back to sleep. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm building my spirituality resilience, okay? So before this meeting, I went for a quick jog around the neighborhood, met people, said and all that stuff. So what am I doing? I think I'm in a good health, if not optimal. but I'm building my fitness edge. So in terms of my relationship, okay, I spent some time with my daughter and son this morning, spending time reading books and all that, and build that relationship, okay? Before they are my son and daughter, actually they corrected me. They said, I said, they're young children. They said, no, they said they are chewing. They keep correcting me every day, asking me questions. So they say they are chewing. So I know that time moves slowly, but it passes quickly. So I know before I know it, they will become 16, 18, and they are gone to wherever, Stanford, Harvard, wherever. And I will miss that relationship. So what am I doing now? I'm building that relationship with them. Those 15 minutes without interruption, some family members or friends, things, they can't get you over the phone or whatever. Of course, that they're a great community, but I spend those times in that area. So what I'm doing is I'm building that resilience. So my finances as well. Okay, my wife's an accountant. She's a great woman. Every month we do what we call a stress test in our finances. I'm sure the bank does that. People say, why would you do a stress test? Imagine if I lost my job for a whole year. Imagine now I'm an entrepreneur myself, But it was because I've been intentional for the past few years. I've got some. I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not Bill Gates, but I think I'm in a good place. You see what I mean? And we know that finances or financial stress is one of the most important stressors in North America. We know that. So imagine if somebody started this year, they're not putting their finances in a good shape. Some will come in life. Are you prepared? If you were laid off your job in this very changing world in the next 6 months, what would you do differently? You see what I mean? Yeah. The other thing is about growth plan. Okay, I'm a big fan of Bill Gates. I'm a big fan of all these top guys. He always read. I think we have the banter around this. She reads about maybe 12 books or 52 books Bill Gates read every year. I'm sure he reads more than that. I don't read a big book every month. I'm trying my best. Maybe a book, depending on the volume of the book. But I try to read as much as I can. But imagine if you read. Again, I'm a person of faith, but I'm not a religious person. I read a lot of philosophy text, Stoic stuff, just gleaning wisdom. John said the other day, so the best way to know the road ahead is to ask people that are coming back from the road. But I see most people don't read. Again, it's not a shame. I've been in that mindset before. Imagine spending time with great philosophers, great thinkers, people who have lived life many years ago, thousands of years ago. By just being intentional and spending that time, that might save you. Their wisdom might save you some crisis down the line of 2023. But if you're not intentional about, okay, I'm going to say, okay, this month, I'm going to start reading one book a day. Sorry, not a day, sorry. I mean a month for most people. I know some people out there, they can read it. Some people can read. Like, I think Warren Buffett probably reads like 500 pages or more a day. That's guy's a genius. I wish I had that skill. People are surprised, how did they become a billionaire? It's about reading, doing the mental gymnastics, being sharp. And I remember not too long ago, I posted somewhere in one of my WhatsApp group. I posted a couple of books, and somebody said, people that read, they see ahead. It's not surprised that these guys, they're great investors, they can see things coming, but most of us are asleep. So it's about having those, addressing those buckets of life, okay? Maybe your businesses, okay, attending conferences. Like for me, sleep is very important. If you met me a few years ago, I probably would sleep. I think I'm superhuman. I'll sleep I think I have that gene. I think they call it 5. Somebody have to fact check that. But some people can do with 4-6 hours, but not me. I've been there before when I'm on calls and all that. But now I have a non-negotiable 7 to 8 hours sleep. My wife knows that. Once it's about 10 o'clock, the kid, my children now knows that they are ready for bed by 9. They get to bed by 8 to read and all the stuff. But it's essential, as I'm the leader in the house, I set that tone. By the time I go to bed around 9, they have to be in bed. They can choose to read and do whatever they want to do. That's, they're learning. I give them that opportunity to learn. But I ensure that the house is quiet, okay? And when they wake up around 6 o'clock, they're ready to go. People surprised, how are your kids being active and being able to read? They're voracious readers. It's because they sleep well. If you sleep well, The other thing I want to mention that is about sleep is just the most important thing. I think people have argued that sleep is probably one of the most important things, with mental resilience or physical resilience. But I found it interesting that most people don't prioritize the sleep. Again, as a doctor, when I did my undergraduate, I can't remember, maybe they had a lecture and I failed to attend. Even at the more sleep, I had a 1 hour lecture. I think at the maximum 2 hours lecture on sleep. Imagine that, a doctor, a top psychiatrist, have 2 hours lecture on sleep. And if you look at all the DSM-5, disorders, the common thing to them, it's sleep. Again, I'm not suggesting here that sleep causes severe mental illness, but what I'm saying is that sleep, if you're not having the right amount of sleep, not just the amount, but the quality of sleep, then you're going to be having some interesting and exciting time this year. So if you look at all those buckets of life, if you can start putting money in the bank, so to speak. Okay, my spiritual health, okay, I'm able, sometimes I'm not able to do 5 minutes meditation, but as I'm here now, my phone is switched off, it's somewhere else, so I'm here in the morning, hopefully. According to literature, I think, is it Dalai Lama is the most person, is a person that spend more time in meditation. Again, we need to fact check that. Yeah, I think he spent about 4 to 6 hours, in sort of solitude and meditation. I don't do that. I can't do that. But what I tend to do is I try to be in the moment. So what I'm doing is I'm putting money in the bank for my mental health so that when I'm exposed to stresses, that is inevitable in this 24/7 life we live in, this fast-paced life. So you're going to be exposed to stressors. So a wise person would be preparing for those things. And I think a couple of other things. So I was speaking to my wife about this. She's also interested in stuff. She gave me an acronym, I think she's mentioned. I asked her, how would you build your resilience? Because I'm always learning from people. Everybody I meet is superior to me in some way. She said, she used this acronym called NEST. So N, it said, is for your nutrition. So your diet. It doesn't matter really if you're vegan, it doesn't matter if you're a vegan, either your Mediterranean diet. I mean, I know there are a lot of studies on that. My role is not to go into that because it could be quite confusing and misleading. But it's to ensure that whichever diet you pick, you'll be able to eat mindfully and also be able to ensure you're getting the right balanced diet. I mean, you can always speak to your doctor about that. I'm not a doctor. And he mentioned the E is for exercise. Also, and she does great exercise. She challenges me, go for her walks every morning, and then does her gym stuff. As I said, N is for nutrition, E is for exercise. She told me what's the best exercise for anyone to do is the one enjoys and one can do. Then the S is for stress management. I can talk about sleep, relaxation, meditation, whatever. Reading books, you write. We got tons of books around there, including our sacred literatures. And I think the most important thing which I wasn't focusing on was the T. Sorry, was the T. It talked about a strong support network.
Yeah, perfect. I really like how you really explain it. You, instead of really talking about mental health or really calling it mental health, we should really focus on well-being and talking about different aspects of our well-being, financial aspect, that if any of those aspects, if there's a problem with any of those aspects, is really going to affect our well-being. Then there must be a plan for that. You also mentioned the case of our spiritual well-being. And another thing that you also mentioned is the importance of having family time, because it's also, if there's a problem with your family, if there's no, there's a disagreement, if there's rivalry in the family, there's no love in the family, it's going to affect your well-being. So you also mentioned the case of sleep. So you discover that there are different things we really need to put together when we're talking about well-being. And we have to be intentional. We have to have a plan. And you can also see that all the things we've been talking about are so important. They are interwoven. Growth plan. You want to have a plan for your well-being. Because if you don't have a plan for your well-being, somebody says, if you don't have a plan, you are planning to fail. So yeah, well-being is very, very important. Like you put it, and you also mentioned the case of sleeping very well. I think there was a time that said that if you want to live well, you should sleep maybe is it 7 hours, at least 7 hours.
So sorry to.
You also mentioned the quality. You also mentioned
I think it's about different people who do different things, based on their awareness, their genes. I mean, we don't want to go into the abstract stuff. Let's go back to that professors at Harvard, Stanford. We want to give people practical things they can do.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what we're giving people, not esoteric stuff that are going to change. As you know, you're a professor anyway. Maybe at every week or every month, you didn't know tons of publications that nature journals will release about sleep, and it keeps evolving. But what we do know, I mean, these are not rocket science. If you study history, you can learn a lot of wisdom about it.
Yeah, right.
So it's about practical things. You have to know what works best for you. Some people, they do great on 6 hours with coffee. Awesome. But as they are tracking their sleep and they are looking at that, okay, oh my God. And they were saying, okay, maybe in the last quarter, let's say for quarter one, I'm on six. Okay, I had 6 hours sleep. Look at your decision making. There are a lot of signs that shows that you could correlate your sleep quality is directly proportional to your decision making. Look at I keep decision journal as an entrepreneur. So I look at my decision. Oh, what did I do? The highs and lows. You can see that you can figure that things out yourself. And if you need a coach, great, you get one. So that's where awareness comes in. Okay. Yeah. For example, if you think you're sleeping 6 hours, you think you're superhuman, you have a gene and all this stuff, but then you're not really writing it. Okay, when I sleep for 6 hours, look at the quality of your relation with your wife, with your kids, even if you have one, and with your co-workers, and also with even your decision making. Look at it. They say doctors are the worst patients. Again, I need to be careful what I talk about my colleagues. But I know myself. I'm a doctor. I'm one by one the worst patient. That's why I need to really put a system in place like this. The wellness, like I said, there are different systems out there. Again, this is just more of a system. We'll put it in the show notes. People can look. You can look at yourself. Okay, I slept 6 hours in January. Okay, look at the quality of your life, and then maybe in Q2 you're going to look at that. Maybe I'm going to have another extra hour sleep and see. Oh, I'm feeling much better. I'm not shouting more when I'm in traffic. When that guy crossed around me, I'm able to make a better decision in terms of my finances. But a lot of people just asleep, so to speak. You see what I mean?
I got you there. Yeah. So it's important for us to look at all those aspects. That's what I was trying to emphasize. And also you mentioned the acronym by your wife. Nutrition is very, very important. Somebody said 1 apple a day will keep you from the doctor. I'm sure you've had that phrase before. So it's very, very important for us to think about that as we go into the new year. And we must also be tough. We must be tough. Somebody said, I think Robert Schuller, tough time never lasts, but tough people do. There are things that are going to come across you. There are challenges that will come across you, but you've got to encourage yourself. I am a person of faith. I believe in Christ. Personally, I want to encourage myself in the Word of God. I try to read the Bible. I try to pray because I believe there is a enormous power that is available to us in God. So you need all those things to really be resilient in this world. I really appreciate how you were able to tell stories. It's good to tell stories a lot, and that's what you've been able to do during our conversation so far, telling stories. People learn a lot of stories. So we are now just
before you, can I just interject for a second?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you. So there's this thing I wear, not all the time. So I've got my glucose. Not sure. Can you see it on the screen?
No, it's not showing. Okay, okay, yeah, I can see it. So okay, 7 something. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's about 7. It's
7 something,
so,
yeah.
Until I started following people in the field of longevity and all that, I wasn't aware of these things, I mean, some experts out there, they wear this glucose monitoring 24/7. I don't do that. But I tend to wear it during Christmas time when there's a lot of food at home, a lot of stuff in my pantry. So I try to wear that. And also in the new year, I'm looking at my glucose. I was feeling a bit funny the other day. I mean, after post-Christmas, I feel a little bit foggy and all that. Imagine that. Some people might thought, I'm feeling anxious and all that. But then I got one of those, last month. Again, I'm not doing any advert for anyone. There are different brands out there. You can speak to your GP. But this one helps me to know what we call the cause and effect, that you are what you eat. Okay. So for example, this morning I've only had some nuts and grains and all that, maybe a cup of coffee and also. But I can see my glucose, I know what is right for me. Again, I'm not your audience doctor. You have to discuss that, with your GP. But imagine if you had this for 14 days, it raises your awareness. Okay. So when you see your blood sugar shoots up to like 14, you need to be asking yourself, what am I eating? Have I gone for that exercise this morning? The point of your relationship. But most of us, we're not aware of all these things until, God forbid, somebody, either collapse somewhere, and then they rush you to your GP, or maybe you go for a random. I'm sure most people will be going to the GP. Okay, MOT test. This is the first year I'm going to look at I'm sure people will see the GP, and the GP put that strap on you and say, you have high blood pressure, 170 over maybe 110 or whatever, really. And we know all these things, they are silent killer. You can't spot them until you start becoming symptomatic, particularly for people like us, Black Africans, Black Canadians, Black Americans, and all this stuff. But if you're aware of your cause and effect, for example, your stress level, your stress management, your exercise, your sleep, then you can see for yourself the cause and effect. You see what I mean? Yeah. So, for example, I have a growth plan with regards to that. So I just only wear it for the first month, just to see, okay, I was telling my wife that I said, okay, I probably have to be, she's a great cook, but, she's different than myself. There's no shame in that. But sometimes I want to, like last year, I was only on carbohydrate diet, but this year I want to spice things up. I want to make more flexible so I can eat with her and stop. Okay? So everyone has to figure that out. But the problem with the traditional medicine or traditional healthcare is that I think the doctors are fantastic and they are well intentioned, but it's just that either they lack the awareness, or the second thing is that I have learned from my experience is that medicine, the way we practice it, is a disease model. Okay, the government won't pay me for me, my GP won't pay me for doing this, keeping healthy. You see what I mean? But the government would pay, I'm sure, my GP for patients that are more diseased, that have chronic illness. You see what I mean? Again, there's no shaming in that. We're part of a bigger community. We're here to support ourselves. But what I'm always preaching is that we need to have a growth plan with regards to all the bucket aspect of our life. And imagine if I have an optimal glucose, I think clearly, right? I make better decisions. My glucose is not fluctuating. I'm not feeling like, what's going on? I'm not really screaming at my wife. Again, I'm not saying I don't have conflict with my wife. I'm human, I make mistakes and all that. But what I'm saying really is, if you have a system in place, right? You're able to, and you are aware of what's going on in your body. You are aware of what's going on in your mind, but most people are not. Then you can figure that out. You can take your GP. Okay, I've been having this for the last 2 weeks. And if you have the wellness edge that I alluded to for the fact a few minutes ago, then you can look at that. Okay, in the month of January, my glucose was all over the place. Just look at that. Okay, oh, maybe these are the meetings. Maybe it's my job. Maybe I'm working in talk. Maybe it's family issues. Maybe I need to set more healthy boundary with family and colleagues. Maybe I'm not having fun in my job, Maybe it's just a posture, A lot of people are, you can see me, I'm standing, obviously, for some reason, for a good reason. Maybe it's just sitting down all day. You see what I mean? But then if you're not aware of all this, until then, you go to your GP, maybe at the end of the year, oh, I say, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, you have type 2 diabetes. You see what I mean? And the wise man says prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
Right?
Profound. That is very deep. That is very deep. And you've also been telling us about traditional medicine, is really looking for, they try to treat the disease. And now you really want us to begin to think about how to prevent, and we can prevent it by our lifestyle. We can prevent it by what we eat. We can prevent it by having good well-being. And it takes hard work. It takes hard work. But that is why it is hard
remember
work.
Remember the saying, yeah. I'm not sure was it Jim Rohn or I don't know who said, he said, if it's easy, everybody would do it. Yeah. So sometimes some people will need a very good doctor who is invested in prevention and health. Most doctors are not. There's no shame in that. Or you perhaps need a coach to help you ask those interesting questions. Somebody that, it might just be a group, a network of people, that want to get better. Like I was saying at the outset of this meeting, I'm running the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth program. Again, it's specifically about mindset. But then once you start joining the community of people who are going somewhere, who has a good plan, who can be online maybe every hour, for 1 hour every week for 4 to 6 weeks, and they start seeing that significant improvement in their lifestyles and their well-being, I'm sure they'll start investing in their mindset, their growth mindset, I suppose, and also in their well-being.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah, and now we've been talking for more than 1 hour now. I think we really need to wrap it up. So, what's your closing remark for us today?
Interesting question. So, you know what I did? I always try to ask questions. So I asked my wife, we had a bit of chat around this, and I asked her, what am I missing? That's a beginner mindset question. A lot of people don't ask that. People don't ask that because they think, oh, they've arrived, they know it all. I said, what am I missing? So my wife said to me, wisdom. So when she said that, I know, wow, that I'm a work in progress. And wisdom, I did a bit of research on this. I'm sure people have access to Google, they can do that. It's something philosophers, doctors, lawyers, historians, humans, they've grappled with over the last few years, I think, or since creation of the world. So what is wisdom? I'm sure there are a lot of smart people out there, very super smart people out there that are able to do justice, speak more even eloquently than me on this topic. But then, if you go on social media, you will know that wisdom is not common these days. So there's a difference between being super smart and having wisdom.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I tell people really is, in terms of if you're going to try to maybe get a doctor or get a coach or get a mentor, it's always looking at a person and asking the person, yeah, he's got this experience, but does this person have wisdom? Because that would be an important factor. So what I would suggest as my closing remark is to encourage our audience to try to maybe you spend a bit of time, wrestling with that question about wisdom. Because the quality of our life is based on the decision we make, right? So, if you don't have wisdom, then you'll be making a lot of interesting, decisions. So, for example, I was in preparation for this podcast or this interview. I was listening to this guy. I think he's a professor in Stanford, and he just said most people don't have the time to meditate, right? We are busy. Most people don't have this time. We're just really in a very busy world. So he just said, maybe just taking a 3 breaths a day before you make major decisions. Okay. Sometimes you might just have to sleep over things. Maybe speak to your wife or a very supportive network before making decisions. But we do know that's not the norm in a society. Even if you look at our leaders who are, I'm not going to make any specific comments about that, but we know that wisdom is rare in this world. There are a lot of super smart people out there, but wisdom is rare. So that'll be and that's one of the words for me this year, is to try to be a better person. Okay. Yeah. To be a wise, but again, I remember somebody told me, if you think you're wise, then it's likelihood that you're not a wise person. So I'm not really in that category. And a lot of wise people like John Maxwell, top people out there who are wiser than me. I'm trying to learn from people I meet. I'm trying to learn from others. So maybe people think about the word wisdom this year. Maybe that will change their mindset. They think about it, because if you're a wise person, you will make better decisions in relation to all aspects of your life, your sleep, your relationship, your spirituality, everything. And if you're we know that habits compounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that who said that? It was Einstein, or it was Warren Buffett, that is the most powerful force in our is compound interest. So imagine if you're a wise person, over time it compounds. So you start making better decisions in relation to yourself, your well-being, your mental health well-being, your financial well-being, and also your family as well. And imagine if people can really do this one thing today. Hopefully this interview impacts somebody out there. Imagine if you can do that, and that spread like wildfire over the world. Do you know what that means? Yeah. That means I'm going to live in a lovely neighborhood, where we make wise decisions. Okay?
Yeah.
We live in a wise community where we don't have to spend money on crimes. We don't have to spend all the budgets on all these things on the healthcare, but we can spend money on what matters. Building the country up, innovating. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And preparing for the future, rather than spending a big chunk of our GDP on things that doesn't really matter.
Thank you so much for your closing remark. Wisdom is very, very important. Even the Holy Scripture says wisdom is a principal thing. It's so important. Wisdom is a principal thing. And I believe that wisdom is the application of knowledge. People have knowledge. Smart people have knowledge, but they are not able to apply the knowledge that they have. A lot of people know that there are certain things you shouldn't do, but they still do it.
Why is that?
Yeah, because they don't have wisdom. Like you said, somebody said, one pastor of the church I've been attending in the US, said that you have a cardiologist that just did maybe operation for someone, and this man knows that it's wrong for him to smoke. This guy knows that smoking can affect his lungs, but this guy will still go and smoke. You understand? So the man knows it, but he can't help himself. So the wisdom is not there. The guy is smart, but the wisdom is not there. So we need more wisdom. So all of us, we need more wisdom. And that's one of the prayers that I want to pray this year, that God increase my wisdom, so that when I know the right thing to do, I should do it. That is wisdom. I really like your.
Add to this, so during my research, I just there's this guy. Again, I'm sure people can Google this anyway. I mean, you can, we have information at the touch of the button. So I'm just going to share this as regards to wisdom. So this, I mean, again, this has been an essential question people have asked over the years. So they say there's Bates and colleagues, they factored and analyzed a lot of results, hundreds of results, and they came out with things they felt, because I know a lot of people like fact, like science, and the amount of science and faith as well, but maybe some of our audience, they're not people of faith and they want science, obviously. So he now said these are the factors, and I think I agree with most of the things he said. He said, one, you have to have factual knowledge. It's not just knowledge, factual knowledge. Like you were saying, the cardiology story. Two, you have to have procedural knowledge. Three, you have to have what we call a lifespan contextualization. It's very difficult for people to do that. Imagine a cardiologist that will see somebody for 5-10 minutes. It's hard to do all these things. Then four is value relativism, ability to see things from all angles. It's very hard. If you're not growing, you don't have a growth mindset, how can you talk to your patient about smoking, mindfulness, exercise, nutrition? You see? And the last but not the least, he said, is awareness and management of uncertainty. And that's where it comes in, your awareness. And most of us, we're not aware. Right. So I think it's interesting. Even for me, it's something that I need to post somewhere. My little place here where I'm going to be looking at it every day as I'm hoping to be a better person, a better human being, a father, a husband, and hopefully a doctor, a physician, as an entrepreneur this year.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Larinde. Larinde, you're my very good friend, for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this interview with me, this recording with me. I've really learned a lot from our discussion, my conversation this afternoon, and I'm sure our viewers have also learned one or two things from our discussion. Thanks for sharing a lot of stories. Thanks for challenging us about self-reflection, challenging us about having a growth plan, challenging us about well-being. And also, one thing I really appreciate about you is really now spending more time with your kids, which is very, very important. And I'm sure, traditional African parents, while we're growing up, they were not taught about that, about the importance of that. But now we really need to really, prioritize that, to spend time with our kids, so that they can also become good parents. A lot of problems we have in the world is because of absentee fathers, and kudos to moms that their husbands are not there, or maybe they lost their husbands. They are really doing a great job, but we need father figures to really raise kids. And even if children don't have fathers, they can also have mentors, maybe from the church, to really be father figures. We really need to do that. Thanks for really from our discussion, from what you've been saying, trying to indirectly telling us about the importance of spending time with our kids is very, very vital. I just want to thank you for our discussion. I really learned a lot. And to our viewers, I want to hear from you what you've learned from our discussion today. Let me know, put it in the comments. So see you some other time. Once again, I want to wish you a wonderful year ahead. Stay blessed.